say this with all the love in the world, man. I hope that you can see this after I say it. No wonder so many of you think you're so screwed up. Is there anything positive that's contributed to your personality development? I didn't guide you in that. I didn't ask you what were some of the negative things that made you who you are today. I asked you what were those things, and people start saying trauma. I mean, look at what's up here, man. And yet I left one tree open because there are there are a lot of positive things that shapes you into who you are today. It's so clearly there because if there was nothing positive that helped develop you into who you are today, think about what a rotten, terrible human being you would be right now. It isn't just the traumas that shape us, it's also the positive experiences. It's also the displays of affection that we've seen. It's also the kindness that we've seen. It's also the seeking for justice that we have found. You wouldn't have made something positive out of it, probably, unless something in your life helped to shape you to the point that made you feel like you could make something positive out of it. That's why it's so important to focus on the positive influences, because those are the things that just sit in the background. They don't get the credit that they deserve. I don't like having to go through challenging things, but there's something in me that has said it's better to live than to not. It's better to experience life than to sit in your mom's basement playing video games covered in Cheeto dust. I'm really not proud of you for things that have happened to you because you had no control over them. Proud of you for your ability to turn it around. I'm proud of you for your ability to maximize your IQ, or to maximize your low IQ or high IQ, to maximize, or to, better yet, to use the word optimize, to make the most of the situation that you're born into, or to make the most of the situations that you've managed to get through. And that's the real test of a person. What do you do with the things that you've gone through in life? So if we're tracking it, the things that contribute to making you who you are today are we were bullied, physical abuse, mental abuse, I don't know why I put physical up there twice, I guess you got beaten twice as much, abandonment, and negative influences, bad influences. I say this with all the love in the world, man. I hope that you can see this after I say it. No wonder so many of you think you're so screwed up. No wonder so many of you think you're so screwed up. Is there anything positive that's contributed to your personality development? Because you're gonna notice, I didn't guide you in that. I didn't ask you what were some of the negative things that made you who you are today. I asked you what were those things, and people start saying trauma. Well, what were some of the things that made you who you are today? And we immediately come out with all the trauma we've endured when we were kids, all the abuse, all the torture, all the murder, all the genocide. Look at what's up here, man. And yet I left one tree open because there are there are a lot of positive things that shapes you into who you are today. Because if you're struggling to find it, that's part of the point, I think, of the whole thing, that you'd be struggling to find it because it's so clearly there. Because if there was nothing positive that helped develop you into who you are today, think about what a rotten, terrible human being you would be right now. And you might think like, well, let me fold my arms when I say this and scratch my chin. I am a pretty horrible person. No, not in the grand scheme of things, man. Not in the spectrum of history's monsters. Maybe I could finish that sentence with saying, yet. Maybe you're not as bad as Stalin yet, or as bad as Pol Pot yet. Maybe you haven't had the opportunities to be the monster that a lot of history's people are. But man, there's this one tree right here, and I'll give you some blue leaves around it, and I would suggest to you that there's a lot more positive that's gone into the development. It isn't just the traumas that shape us, it's also the positive experiences. It's also the displays of affection that we've seen. It's also the kindness that we've seen. It's also the seeking for justice that we have found. It's also people around us who, like, one of the reasons, for example, that I read so much is because when I was growing up, my mom was disabled. She couldn't do much physically. She was only given a 5% chance of ever walking again. She did walk again, but she was an incredibly tough woman. But so when I was growing up, she couldn't do a lot with me physically. I think I was like a year old when she got injured like that. And imagine having a toddler running around, and you're bedridden, and you can't really afford to have anybody take care of your kids. It tells me something phenomenal about what the spirit's capable of doing with the body. But because she couldn't do a lot physically, she read a lot. And because she read a lot, I read a lot. And so I guess I could focus on a lot of that negativity about, when I would get jumped walking home, or my math teacher who told me that he wouldn't teach me math because white people aren't capable of doing math, because white people didn't invent math. And so therefore he refused to grade any of my assignments or teach me anything. I guess I could focus on that. That did happen. Or I guess I could focus on all of these negative things that they made me into. I guess I could stand up and proudly and almost arrogantly say, but despite my math teacher saying that, or despite that I made something positive out of it, you wouldn't have made something positive out of it probably unless something in your life helped to shape you to the point that made you feel like you could make something positive out of it. That's why it's so important to focus on the positive influences, because those are the things that just sit in the background. They don't get the credit that they deserve because we don't focus on them, because it's hard for us to see them. It's easy for us to see all of the negative things, the abandonment, the abuse, and the bullying. It's difficult for us to see the influences that could teach us or did teach us to somehow make something positive of those negative experiences, because they are there. And we don't give them the credit that they deserve. It's like we don't give credit to the friend who's with us every day, day in and day out through the mundane, doesn't necessarily lift us up, isn't the person who comes in and just hypes us. But we do remember the one person who turned their back on us at the time that we thought we needed them the most. And then we think, wow, despite that one person turning their back on me, I was able to stay up. And a lot of times it's because of that silent friend who's in the background, who isn't boisterous, who doesn't get the credit that they deserve. A lot of times the experiences that you go through, even when you're a little kid, they make you capable of making the negative things into positive things. And so I make the tree in blue because it's worth figuring out what are some of those positive things that have happened to you that have shaped you into who you are today. Because if you can sit there and again, fold your arms and scratch your chin and frown and say, these things are, bullying is terrible. The only reason you think bullying is terrible is because something in your life helped you to see that it was terrible. It helped you to see that there's an alternative, a better way. It never occurs to us that there's a better way until we have seen a better way. What's the positive thing that's happened in your life? Again, I can think back to myself about why it is that intellectualism is so important to me. It's not I have read a lot, man. I don't like reading. I'm not that person's sister who says, oh my God, I can't wait to go home and read. Like today, if I was in school as a little kid, I was telling someone recently that I would no doubt have been diagnosed with ADHD. Not able to sit still, not able to concentrate, not able to focus. There's no doubt I would have been diagnosed with ADHD. Do you think I sit there and do you think I can't wait to go home and just read a great book? No. I get these big giant books like from Dostoevsky, my favorite novelist. And I just sit there and go, man, I don't have to read through all that. But when I get to the end of it, I'm like, dope, I read through all that. It's kind of like traveling. I hate traveling, man. I really like having gone to places. I like on the way back to be able to say, hey, I just visited, whatever, the Sphinx. But in terms of like doing it, having to book it, get on the plane, fly over there, get to the hotel, walk all the way over there. It's really hot and it's sunny. I hate all that stuff, man, but I really like the outcome of it. I don't like reading a whole lot, but I really like having read. I don't like having to go through challenging things, but there's something in me that has said it's better to live than to not. It's better to experience life than to sit in your mom's basement playing video games covered in Cheeto dust. There's something better about going and working a minimum wage job so that you can develop a skill set so that you don't have to work minimum wage jobs your whole life, rather than staying at home because that job's not worth it, or that job's below me, or I don't want to do that work. This is all the stuff that stands out to us as a negative thing. Why? It's outside of us. but we miss those positive things that are outside of us. And it's not just in terms of personality development. It's in a lot of areas of our lives, I'm sure. And this isn't to say there's something wrong with you. What I'm saying is that there's something, man, about this. I hate saying it, man, because I start to sound like old man Scanlon when I say this, but there's something about the present generation, because I've seen the changes where it's like we valorize our weaknesses. We valorize our victimhood. We valorize our pathologies. In other words, we say, like, somehow it's a mark of courage and bravery to say, I went through physical abuse. Okay. Golf clap. Wow. Something happened to you. I'll say something, man. I really mean this. I'm not proud of you. I'm really not proud of you for things that have happened to you, because you had no control over them. By the way, I'm also not proud of you if you have an exceptionally high IQ. You didn't choose that. I'm not proud of you if you have an exceptionally low IQ. I'm not proud of anybody for anything that they didn't choose to do. Proud of you for your ability to turn it around. I'm proud of you for your ability to maximize your IQ, or to maximize your low IQ or high IQ, to maximize, or to, better yet, to use the word optimize, to make the most of the situation that you're born into, or to make the most of the situations that you've managed to get through. And that's the real test of a person. What do you do with the things that you've gone through in life? What do you do with the experiences that you have? What do you do with the fill in the blank that you've been born with? Because this is absolutely true, by the way. Your soul is a dark forest, it's true. But the trees are a particular species. All of this right here makes up your soul, we could say. But man, what do you focus on? And if we're so focused on the negative things, well, no wonder you think that your soul is so negative. And no wonder you see the world this way. No wonder you think that things are so screwed up and that things are so bad. Are things bad? Well, yeah, they're bad, but they're also good, man. And we miss it. There's an old saying, that's one of the reasons I think I like this quote so much. There's an old saying which says that you miss the forest for the trees. Meaning that you can be so focused on each individual tree that you miss there's this massive forest out there. So the question becomes then, what are the trees that you're focusing on? Do you focus on all the negative ones? Do you focus on some of the positive ones? Don't, by the way, ignore either. Like if you were bullied when you're younger, if you were going through abuse, if you've been abandoned, don't ignore those things. They do need to be dealt with. They do need to be addressed. Of course. But so do the positive things, man. Because it's the positive parts of your character that are going to help you to make these things into something positive. It's the positive influences in your life that show you that there is a better way, that there is something possible. If you've got someone like, I'll deal with this. I have somebody in one of my classes who wrote a letter of introduction who said that she was focused on school, and she, by the way, this is a person who has a lot of personal challenges, man. This wasn't just a person who just told me all about them in her letter of introduction. I just happened to know about this person. And she goes through a lot. And in her letter of introduction, she says something to the effect of that she's focusing a lot on school and academic achievement because she needs to get out. And she says she can't play sports, so that's not a possibility for her. She can't play an instrument, so that's not a possibility for her. And so the only other avenue that she can see out is school, intellectualism. Now, the only reason that she'd be focusing on that is because she has seen it be possible in somebody else's life. Like I talk about when I was growing up, most of my friends from when I grew up were all either dead or were in jail or were in rehab. That's most of my friends growing up. There's two other possibilities. All of us who made it out, overwhelmingly, were either cops or were teachers. Well, isn't that interesting? That most of our community, when I grew up, we were trained almost trained to hate cops and to hate teachers. So who did we idolize? Criminals in the neighborhood. And most of those criminals in the neighborhood, they fall into those categories at the beginning as well. They're either dead or they're in jail. And if they're lucky enough, they're in rehab to get out of that. And so our way of seeking out was to say, well, the neighborhood that we're coming from has created this kind of person, which is most of us growing up. So the way out of that is to reject it. And it seems like, and it's so strange to me that the way that we chose, that most neighborhoods choose to reject that is either law enforcement or education. Excuse me. So that tells you something about what it is that created those problems in the first place. Anti-rule and anti-intellectualism. So that might be something curious to know about how those trees were formed, the things that fit our roots. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Monday, man.